Today we're going to look at the Synchron deck in Character Duel. So the whole idea of this deck is to Synchro Summon. You do it by having Junk Synchron in your hand, by either having it or searching it with Tuning or Synchro Overtake, and then you can just normal summon your Junk Synchron, and then the skill gives you a whole bunch of monsters in your graveyard. You will usually just use it to summon your Junk Converter, and then use those two to make a copy of Junk Warrior. Junk Warrior will have a mandatory effect that doesn't really matter. It's not a very good card. It's just there as a level 5 synchro, because when you use the Junk Converter as part of the material, you can use its effect to revive back the Junk Synchron, and then you can use the level 5 Synchron plus the level 3 Junk Synchron to make either a Stardust Dragon if you go first, or a Junk Destroyer if you go second, and it allows you to either pop cards with Junk Destroyer, or if you go first, have Stardust plus the trap that you set with your skill, and that's like one quick effect pop, which is okay, I guess, but a lot of decks can play through the pop, so to supplement the going first game plan, we are playing a whole bunch of non-engine, because the deck is a one-card combo focused deck. We have a lot of space for generic stuff. We have triple Book of Moon and two Phoenix Chains to strengthen our board going first, so that alongside the one pop from the Shooting Star Trap, we also have more stuff, because usually the one pop is not enough to win the game. And going second, we could instead make Junk Destroyer to pop opponent stuff, or we could use Quick Draw Synchron, which is a level 5 tuner, and use it plus the Hedgehog that we get from our skill. It revives itself in the graveyard, and then that allows us to make a level 7 Synchro. And the level 7 Synchros are primarily the way that you break your opponent's board going second, alongside the Junk Destroyer. It pops, but Junk Archer banishes, so that is good against some matchups where their monsters might have some sort of destruction protection, which will stop you from popping it with Junk Destroyer. So you can instead use Junk Archer, which is basically Malevolent Sin, and banishes your opponent's monster temporarily, and then you can just attack and try to win. At least that's the game plan. There are also some other synchro monsters like Armory Arm that might come up occasionally, but those are just there. You don't usually make it. And your monsters cap out at 28 with Nitro Warrior. You can theoretically make Nitro Warrior go up to 38 or even 48 if you somehow have a way to equip Armory Arm to it. But realistically, you will cap out at 26, because in order to make the Nitro Warrior, you need the level 5 Quick Draw Synchron, and this is not exactly the most easily accessible card in the deck, because Junk Synchron is a lot more easy to have in your hand than Quick Draw Synchron. If you special summon Quick Draw Synchron, you need a monster to discard, so not exactly the easiest to summon. So a lot of times you will be struggling if your opponent has like a Blue Eyes, and if you have no way of getting rid of it by using your effects, you can't really have a way to beat over it by battle either. So that's kind of the weakness of the deck. If you want to play a good synchro deck in Character Duels, definitely go play the Jack Atlas deck. That deck is just better in every single way. Their skill is more consistent. The synchro monsters are better. Dark End Dragon can send monsters to the graveyard instead of just popping, and they can make 2 of those in a single turn. Theoretically, you could play Dark End Dragon in this deck if you have more grades, which I don't have enough. So you can replace the Armory Arm probably with 1 copy of the Dark End, because Junk Warrior and Junk Synchron are both dark monsters, so they do fulfill the requirements of synchro summoning the Dark End. But those don't really do too much to help the deck, and you would probably rather use those grades on actually improving the main deck and maybe play more non-engine, or fixing the ratios of your engine versus non-engine. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's actually look at some replays. Okay, in our first replay, we're playing against Cyber Dragon, and this is one of the few matchups where our Stardust Dragon actually has a really good matchup against, just because of the Stardust Dragon negation effect actually being relevant. The main 2 ways of popping stuff is Overflow and Rampage Dragon, and having Stardust on the field to negate that is actually really good for us. So we're going to do basically the combo. We're not going to use the tuning in our hand because we want to have it for follow-up. And we will not activate it this turn just because if we draw one of the tuners, we can just use it to search the other tuner, so we don't have two of the same tuners. Our opponent will activate their skill after paying half of their life points. You can add Dre to their hand, which I think is pretty funny until I discover what he's trying to do. So usually you don't want to play that because you only get the effect when it's normal summoned, and you know you wouldn't use your normal summon on core anyway. And then they fusion summon by using the Dre in hand, and then I'm like, okay, that's cool. I can just Stardust negate the fusion monster until I see that they went Chainlink 1 fusion monster and then Chainlink 2 used the Dre second effect, which I didn't even know it had. And when it is banished, you get to target a Cyber Dragon monster you control and it cannot be destroyed. So, you know, that effect isn't really relevant, but what is relevant is that it is Chainlink 2, which means we can no longer negate the Rampage Dragon with Stardust, because, you know, Rampage Dragon destroys and we could have negated with Stardust, which is, you know, my plan. But he has a way to chain block it. But that's still okay. That's we can still at least chain our back row to the back row pop to at least get rid of the Rampage Dragon. You know, not that he could beat over our monster anyway. Kind of shame that he destroyed our MST so that we couldn't get rid of his back row. But we win anyway, because even if that set is an overflow, we have the Stardust Dragon to negate the trap card, so he knows he couldn't win and he's just gonna scoop. In our second game, we are playing against Neos, which is kind of a bad matchup. It really depends on the hands that both we and our opponent draw. We draw okay, I guess. We do have 2 non-engine plus 2 engine cards. Not exactly happy to draw the Quick Draw Synchron. It's actually better to have more search spells instead of having the tuner monsters directly, because you can choose between searching either Quick Draw or Junk Synchron depending on the situation. And Quick Draw needs a monster discard specifically, and we do not have another monster force to discard, so it's just gonna stay in our hand, and hopefully we'll be able to summon it on our follow-up. Opponent's gonna add Neos Fusion. I'm not too afraid of that, because even though the Neos Fusion will prevent us from popping his fusion, we can just flip it face down with Book of Moon and then we can deal with it later. End phase, we will pop one of his back row, and Shooting Star get rid of his fusion and he won't be able to protect it. We're gonna go and declare attack, force him to use his Gardener. Now I'm just trying to draw into another copy of Junk Synchron, because that's the only one card combo that we have. So we do draw it next turn, but he does have a Book of Moon, which completely ends our turn. So we're just kind of hoping that he doesn't draw an out. As long as the Phoenix Chain is on our field, he can't really attack with the Brave Neos. He could try to MST, but we can negate with Stardust Dragon. It wouldn't be possible if that was a Cosmic, but thankfully it is an MST. We can just Tribute Summon Quick Draw Synchron, even though we didn't draw a monster. So we could still at least get the level 7 Synchro out. And now we're just hoping that our opponent doesn't top deck something crazy. And, you know, of course he top decked something crazy, and that's pretty much the end of the game. We don't have a way to get rid of the third Brave Neos. We fought really hard with our non-engine to counter the first 2 Brave Neos, but luck has ran out on our side, and he just top decks the best card in his deck. It is what it is. We can at least try to get rid of it by just making our monster really big, but that is pretty much not going to be happening. It would be possible if we could have a way to summon the Quick Draw, but a Quick Draw needs a monster discard, so it's not happening. You know, at least if we are able to make a level 7 Synchro, we can maybe make a copy of Junk Archer and banish the Brave Neos, but we can't really do that, so unfortunately this will be a win for our opponent. So yeah, that pretty much shows what the deck is lacking, and you know, you can still play this deck if you really like it. You can supplement the weaknesses with non-engine. As you saw, we did get pretty close by just having the non-engine in our deck. But yeah, thanks for watching. Goodbye.